Hello everybody, my name is Matt Walker. I'm a producer on Batman Arkham Shadow, and I am excited to bring you round 2 of our Q&A here with...
Hi, I'm Ryan Payton. I'm the studio head of Camouflage and the game director on Batman Arkham Shadow. So yeah, we're here because we had such a great time last time. The response from the community was phenomenal, and we just thought this would be so much fun to come back, do it again. We got another 20 questions, and we also just want to extend a big thank you to Batman Arkham Videos, to the community for just being so interested in this game that we're working on, and we hope that you're able to learn some interesting things about Batman Arkham Shadow through these 20 questions that they've provided to us that we are going to answer now.
That's right, we got all 20 right here, so if it's all right, I'm just going to kick this off. Are we ready to go?
Let's do it.
All right, sweet. All right, from Lizzie Laporte on YouTube. What do you hope VR brings to Batman Arkham Shadow that could not be replicated on more conventional hardware?
So yeah, we actually intentionally started with this question because I think you're going to see this theme running throughout all of our answers today, which is the fact that, as you know, our game is very much embedded in the Arkham franchise. It's an authentic new entry into the Arkham franchise, but it's also meant to be a game that was built from the ground up for VR. So with those kind of two things combined is really what Arkham Shadow is all about. It's a celebration of Arkham. It's a continuation, it's a new chapter, and it's leveraging the unique strengths of VR. And I was thinking about that earlier today in just terms of what we're doing to really leverage the unique strengths of the hardware of the Quest 3. And one, as you know, is that a big part of our game is just players becoming Batman and feeling fully immersed and being that character like you can't do on the flat screen games. And then I thought about actually a gameplay thing that I think helps illustrate it, which is something quite simple. It's one of the most commonly used mechanics in the whole game, which is the grapple, right? Use the grapple gun. And in the flat screen games, you remember, you can look around and you'll see this reticle that'll show you where you can grapple, and you hit the right bumper or the R1 button, and then you'll zip up to there, right? But in Arkham Shadow, you still get that reticle where you're looking around, but then you extend your hand out, you've got the touch controllers, you hit the A button, and then you zip to that spot. And just like in the console games too, if you hold the button down, you don't immediately go up on top of that ledge. You're there in a hung position, and then players can go for a silent takedown or physically move themselves up into position, right? So I think that kind of illustrates just the physicality and allows you to feel like you're just more like Batman.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, and you brought up, a great word. You said immersion, right? And that physicality, I think, is really part of that immersion. I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the title for the game is something that was directly inspired by that kind of immersion that you were hoping to bring the player with this title.
Yeah, so the title, Arkham Shadow, is not just a story and thematic inspired title, but it's also a celebration of the technology behind the game. And all credit goes to our team, our graphics and rendering engineers, to have Batman's shadow real-time, fully rendered and fully represented into the environment that really leverages the power of the Quest 3. And that was in large part inspired by playing a moment in Arkham Origins. I know you remember when you go into the GCR area and they've got a light behind Batman. You can see your full silhouette there projected onto the enemies.
I'll pull this trigger. I ain't playing.
And it just reminds you that you are Batman. And when you are playing this game with the Quest 3 on and you see your real shadow being projected on the environment, even more so it reminds you that you are the Batman. You are playing this game. You are fully immersed.
All right, moving on to question number 2 from the Ashura 9102 on YouTube. When did the studio pitch Arkham Shadow to Warner Brothers? What were your VR inspirations?
Yeah, so back 3.5 years ago when we approached Warner Brothers Interactive, we approached them with 3 main topics. One was that we wanted to make a new Arkham game in that franchise as a celebration, as fans of that franchise. 2, we wanted to do something new. We want to tell a new story, not a remake. We wanted to bring in new characters, new features. And 3, we wanted that to all be informed by VR, by the strengths of the VR and where we think that VR is going. And in terms of the question and the inspiration, we really feel like we've been standing on the shoulders of giants in terms of learning about all of the things you do and you don't do when it comes to VR game development, game design. How do you make it feel comfortable? How do you make it look great? How do you leverage the strengths of the platform and not lean into the things that are better for flat screen games, right? And so all of that combined, I think, led to which I think now as history has proven is be a successful pitch, right? They gave us the thumbs up, the green light, and we've been busy ever since working on Batman Arkham Shadow. Also, the question was kind of insinuating about which games in particular. So, Matt Walker, what do you remember from the pitch and what kind of games we've been inspired by in the development of the game?
Well, I mean, you figure since we've started making this game, there's and even before that, right? There have been all these really amazing games in VR that have come out that have really established kind of what to expect from VR, right? So there's games like Super Hot VR, right? That really showed us with bullet time, for instance, kind of what you can do in VR to make that to enhance your experience.
Yeah,
right?
The time dilation, right? Especially in combat.
Right, exactly. Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, right?
That's a great game. Yeah, that sense of like weight that you have in that game when you're wielding the axes. But in our game, you're wielding gadgets, right? Whether it's the Batarang or it's the gel launcher or it's the smoke bombs you're pulling off your gauntlet. That sense of weight, I think they did such an incredible job. Just an amazing game from start to finish.
Absolutely. How about Jurassic World Aftermath?
You know what? We actually looked very closely at that game. We're huge fans of it. They have a lot of really terrific stealth components. And also, they just have a lot of innovative features that we took as inspiration that you'll see kind of sprinkled throughout the game as well.
And of course, Beat Saber.
Well, Beat Saber was really the start of it. I think we talked about it in the last video, right? Which people should go check out. But Beat Saber really unlocked the combat of the game, which I know we're going to talk about in a little bit. But probably the closest inspiration for as it relates to how we executed on combat, bringing the Arkham combat into the game.
Well, and I think that leads us really well on to our next question here. Question number 3 from Jackward5208 on YouTube. Did you take any inspiration from 2016's Batman Arkham VR?
Absolutely. We actually took inspiration from Batman VR back when we were working on our previous game. From beginning to end, I think it's just such a high quality, just so much love being poured into that game that leverages a lot of the strengths of VR. In fact, one of our design directors on the game, Bill Green, was a lead on Arkham VR, and we're so honored to have him on the project, who has helped kind of teach us in terms of how you make an authentic Arkham game, but also as somebody who really relishes in the opportunity to come back and do another VR game in the Arkham universe, but expand upon what they're able to do in a really relatively short dev time that they had in that title, right? We looked really closely at how they represented the gadgets, right? How the Batarang felt, how the grappling gun felt and sounded. But we also knew we wanted to expand upon that with a much bigger game. And that's, by the way, how I was able to convince Bill to join our project. I said, hey, we're going to build a much bigger game. It's going to be longer than Iron Man VR, ideally close to that kind of Arkham Asylum runtime. And one of his first questions was, what about combat? Have you figured out combat? And he said, absolutely figured out combat. Last thing about Arkham VR, though, you remember the suit up sequence, and I think that's one of the best things about that game. And we sometimes get questions about our suit up sequence. Is it going to be similar to the Arkham VR one? What do you say about that, Matt Walker?
That's a great question. In terms of the suit up sequence, I think that they did an amazing job, right? It leaves such an impression on the player, right? I think for our purposes, what we looked at, we said, we want to honor that, but from a pacing perspective, we also want to make sure that we're getting the player in and out as quickly as possible.
That's true. Yeah, without revealing too many spoilers, you suit up multiple times in our game, and we wanted that to be relatively quick. And as I think you're alluding to too, we just have like the utmost respect for what they're able to do with Arkham VR, and like we want that to be that experience. If you want the full multi-minute experience of doing the suit up, you got to check out Arkham VR.
All right, question number 4, rapid fire time from Josh D's 9721 on Discord. Is Arkham Shadow's Batsuit an evolved version of the Origins suit? It definitely looks like it, and I love it.
Well, I love that you love it, and I love that the reaction to the Batsuit that you're seeing in our first 2 trailers, from the teaser trailer and from the story trailer, the response has been really, really positive, and that was a big relief for us, because as you suspected, we looked at the Origins suit as the baseline, and then we worked with a longtime collaborator of ours, Adi Gravnov, who has been just an incredible partner with us for our last 2 games, and he looked at that Origins suit, and we worked very closely with Warner Brothers and DC to evolve it with lots of feedback from them into a place that it feels like it's a natural evolution from where Batman was in Origins. And you can kind of, if you squint, you can see where he's headed eventually with Arkham Asylum suit.
All right, number 5 from our friends at Batman Arkham Videos. Will Arkham Shadow include references to the broader DC Comics universe or other Batman media?
So you could attest to this, because I tend to kind of fend off a lot of the larger DC universe ideas from the team, not because they're bad, but because with Arkham Shadow in particular, and because it's been quite a while since the last official entry into the franchise, we wanted to double down into the world of Arkham, right? Not expand out, but really go actually in and pull in more elements of that people would be excited about, go deeper into more elements in the Arkham verse. But that being said, we are pulling more Batman media elements into it as well. We've talked about some of our inspirations from the 2022 film from Matt Reeves, The Batman, how the Batarang clicks into the player's chest piece. That was definitely inspiration from that film. And as you know, we're massive fans of Batman the Animated Series, which is a big source of inspiration across the Arkham franchise. And we continue to pull references from that, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. In fact, God, there was actually a meeting we had this morning where you literally had a suggestion for something that came straight from Batman the Animated Series, and that's actually going to go into the game.
True story. A lot of nights I just go to bed watching old reruns of Batman the Animated Series that I've been watching since I was, a pretty young kid at this point. One of the best pieces of not only Batman media, but I think of any media in decades, I think. So.
All right, time for question number 6, another rapid fire question from VAC3134 on Instagram. Will there be any other returning allies, such as Alfred, Barbara Gordon, or any Robins?
Let's just say 2 out of the 3.
All right, number 7, another rapid fire question from Turozone Wolf 8467 on YouTube. Will we see characters only referenced up until now in the previous Arkham games?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, in fact, we heavily hint at one in the previous story trailer in terms of a returning character that might also appear in Batman the Animated Series, but I've already said too much. But no, we also have characters that have only been referenced in character bios in previous Arkham games as well. So, and it's just so much fun not only see them in full 3D, but in VR, to see them even in the character viewer, right, which is fully, which we announced, I think, in the previous video, and just so cool to see in VR, be able to get up close and personal with these characters.
All right, another rapid fire question, this time from Thrip2000 on Discord. Can we get a random non-spoiler line from the game?
What do you think, Matt Walker?
I got one for you, sure. It's the freaking bat.
It's the freaking bat!
There you go. It wouldn't be an Arkham game without that line.
All right, question number 9 from Servitor on YouTube. Is work on Arkham Shadows free flow combat complete? How does it feel?
All right, so let's just demonstrate it physically, Matt Walker. So I know that when you like to start a big combat sequence, right, you want to start with what? Yeah, the smoke bombs, right? So you grab the smoke bomb out of your from your gauntlet, throw it down on these unsuspecting enemies, glide down onto them. And what do you think, Matt Walker? You want to start like walking up to these enemies?
No, you punch too.
Yeah, you know how this game works, right? So yeah, you got your headset on, you got your touch controllers, you hold down the grip and trigger button, and then you see an enemy, it locks in, and then you start punching towards him, and you leap across the room and connect right at him with a nice bit of time dilation, and that's what begins the combo, right? And so you're doing different combos that the game is introducing you to. You might want to throw in like a different gadget into the mix, whether it's Batarang or whether it's a gel launcher or the smoke bombs we just mentioned, or maybe even a cape stun. And then we go, you know how it is with the Arkham games. Just when you think you're about to take out the guy, you get that counter marker, right? And in our game, it comes up either depending on what angle they're coming at from behind you, whether it's on the right side or the left side, right? So you see the blue counter marker. Let's just say it's coming in from the left side. You put your hand up there. If you get a successful counter, we then snap you over to the next enemy that you can then start fighting and continue your combo meter as you're building up your combo meter to be able to perform a special combo, right? In which you just go ape on these guys. And the team has just done a great job of making that feel powerful and awesome. And it's up to the player whether they want to go into their special combo, taking out more enemies, or do some of these other moves that we haven't talked about yet. So yeah, you complete your special combo, go nuts on these guys, brutal takedown, boom, 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 boom. And then once you've cleared out the whole room, you get that scorecard like you did in the other Arkham games. How long was your combo? How much variety did you use? Variation? How many times you get hit? Right, and that all gets funneled into the progression system that we haven't really talked about too much. But yeah, that's like a kind of a physical demonstration of how our combat works. Thank you.
All right, next question from Game Destroyer 81510 on YouTube. How does the gliding, grappling, and gadgets work?
Well, for gliding, all the players need to do is hold down the triggers while they have their arms up here, and they're basically grabbing the cape of Batman, and then they use it to influence the trajectory that they're doing as they glide over different distances. It feels really, really terrific. For the grapple, we kind of talked about that a little bit earlier. And for the gadgets, we took inspiration again from Saints and Sinners in terms of how they do their different slots and their holsters that feel really good. And for us too, you got your Batarang on your chest, you've got your smoke bombs on your wrist. We've got 2 holsters to each side of your utility belt. On the left side, a gadget that we haven't announced yet that I think people are going to be very excited and relieved to see in the game. And then on the right side, we've got the gel launcher that I know you're a big fan of.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. Well, and maybe we talk about this a little later on, but in VR, the ability to use both your hands, for puzzles and stuff is something that I thought you can't really do,
That's right.
in a conventional console game, And so being able to say climb, with one hand, you're holding onto a ledge with one hand, and then you use the other hand to say use the gel launcher and so now while you're climbing,
grabbing, pull this thing up, shoot, and then the wall explodes, and then you pull yourself up with two arms. It has to be experienced to fully understand like how cool and how immersive and just how next gen it all feels.
That's a perfect way to put it, man. All right, number 11. Again, a rapid fire question from Elliot French, 1801 on YouTube. Will Arkham Shadow feature any of the vehicles?
No vehicles. Sorry.
Another rapid fire question from Monolukita on Discord. Is the Riddler coming back to haunt us with his trophies?
Collectibles. Yeah, we're gonna have plenty of collectibles. Whether or not they're gonna be Riddler or not.
All right, another rapid fire question, this time from A Dead Man Walking on X. Is Detective Vision like what we saw in Origins and Arkham VR?
Well, what do you think, Matt Walker? I've been doing all the talking. I'll throw this back at you.
I think so. I think it is. In fact, and I think it's so cool in those other games, that really the most important thing we could do is really just try to make sure that we replicate that. And so the coolest thing then is it's Detective Vision, but it's in VR.
But it's in VR, and it plays perfectly, yeah.
Another rapid fire question, this time from Connor Baldsus on Facebook. Will there ever be a port of Batman Arkham Shadow for Quest 2 or PC VR?
Right, we answered a similar question last time, and I wanted to just use this as an opportunity to dig a little bit deeper into this because we continue to get questions like this. And I'm sympathetic to people who want to play Arkham Shadow on the hardware that they own, but one of our big goals for this title is to leverage the strengths of the MetaQuest 3 to go all in on that. And so what that meant was, no, we're not building the game. We don't have like a backup PC build or a backup Quest 2 build. The team is building it specifically and exclusively for the MetaQuest 3. And it's really our job to prove to everybody out there that this game is worthy of buying a Quest 3 for. And we're going to talk a little bit later about this, but with our next big reveal at Gamescom, I think the way that you're going to see what we're doing with the gameplay, but especially the visuals, will really help demonstrate like why we felt like we needed to go all in on the Quest 3.
Question number 15 from James on Instagram. Will there be a non-VR console version of Arkham Shadow that plays like a traditional Arkham game?
Yeah, we were talking about this one over lunch because I feel like this is a really understandable question, right? Hey, look, all this content, this new Arkham game, I want to play it on the hardware I have, and maybe not even on a non-VR piece of hardware. But as game developers, this one's a pretty easy one, especially for a game developer such as Camouflage that goes all in on VR. Every single thing, whether it's the spatial audio, whether it's the UI, whether it's the combat, the traversal, everything is filtered through. Is this for VR? Yes. Then we leverage the unique strengths of the hardware, of the technology, right? So going back and making a flat screen version of this game, I think would be just as much work, if not more, than to just make a new game. And we were also talking about lunch about how we were getting questions about this back in the day about Iron Man VR before people got their hands on it, right?
Right, exactly. And so what ended up happening there? Like when people asked you those questions, did they end up understanding kind of like why it was that this game only worked in VR?
I think, again, it's difficult to kind of wrap your heads around because there are games that are for both VR and flat screen, but there are games that were built to leverage the strengths of VR. For example, Beat Saber. I don't think the Beat Saber team probably gets too many requests to do a flat screen game because when people play it, they see, oh, I see, this game was really built from the ground up to leverage the strengths of VR. And that was the same way with Iron Man VR. Before people got their hands on it, they're like, oh, I want Iron Man on PlayStation 4 flat screen. But then once they play it, they really understood just the way that you do your flight, the way that the combat worked, the way that we did the story, everything. It was just going all in on VR, and that's exactly what we're doing here again, but with Batman Arkham Shadow.
All right, question number 16 from Cardi B Jr. on Discord. What learnings from Marvel's Iron Man VR did the team apply when developing Arkham Shadow?
Well, in addition to all the aforementioned things I just went over, I think the team at Camouflage just does a terrific job on allowing the player in VR to really embody the character, the hero that they're playing as. And with Iron Man in VR in particular, we didn't have just like floating Iron Man hands. We had the full gauntlets, the full suit. You look down, you see your legs, you see how the suit is reacting to your movements. And we really wanted players to not only embody Iron Man, but embody Tony Stark in a way that made them feel like they are that character, right? And we definitely applied all of those learnings to how we're representing Batman in Arkham Shadow. And I think even going further than that, the team has really grown and has really matured over the last 3.5, 4 years. And I think you're going to really feel that and see that when you jump into the suit, when you play the game, when we ship it later this fall.
Number 17 from Bran Ryan 1994 on Discord. I heard you say Camouflage team members were required to play all the Arkham games. Did that include Arkham Origins Blackgate?
It did not include Arkham Origins Blackgate, although that was listed as an optional game, which a lot of people on the team did take advantage of and did go dive in pretty deeply into it, including yourself, Matt Walker.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, I love that game. And so that was made by Armature Studios, right? Who is now a sister studio to us.
Yeah, we're both making VR games, all part of Oculus Studios, and they're behind the Resident Evil 4 built from the ground up remake for Quest 2. And I think one of the best Quest 2 games ever released as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, back to Arkham Origins Blackgate. We did look very closely at the game. We continue to look closely at the game. And we borrow elements from that game, whether it's mechanics like the gel launcher, some story threads that we continue on, some characters. So lots of influence, right? I would say we're maybe more influenced by Origins than we were Origins Blackgate, but we still look at that game as a source of inspiration.
All right, time for another rapid fire question, this time from Rice Lightning on YouTube. Will there be alternate outfits like Marvel's Iron Man VR?
It's definitely something we considered, but in Arkham Shadow, we don't have alternate costumes for Batman, and for good reason. We put a lot of time and effort into Iron Man VR for those different skins and those different custom decos we called. We think they look fantastic, but we noticed that the engagement on them weren't as high as we wanted it to be. And I think it's in large part because most of the time you're spent in first person in VR, not looking at your suit, you're looking at the action, you're looking at the environment. And so we decided to instead spend those resources, not just creating lots of different suits for players to swap in and out of, but to spend those resources and that time and effort into more characters from the Arkham franchise that you will get up close and personal with in VR, including in our character viewer too. So that's one thing I really just, when I'm feeling down, Matt Walker, I just go into the headset and I load up the character viewer and I just kind of flip through all of these characters that the team has done such a great job. Chris Foster, T-John, just completely just killing it. And I think people are going to really appreciate the love and care that went into those characters, and hopefully will forgive us that we don't have alternate costumes.
All right, this time from Outsider on Discord. How do you see VR games evolving in the next few years?
You know I love talking about this, right? I mean, this is what we spend all the time talking about in between working on the game. Because I find it such a fascinating world that we're living in the world of VR game development. I mean, what an amazing opportunity to be part of what is still relatively a nascent sector of the games business in video game development history, right? Things only really started getting cooking in like 2016 or so. Yep. You saw that with Arkham VR as like a 1 to 2 hour experience, right? But if you like zoom out, you can see that games are getting bigger and better, right, and the developers are getting more experience.
There's more and more, right, that are establishing these kind of new norms.
Yeah, this big titles of a catalog of evergreen VR games that went from Arkham VR, and then you got Walking Dead: Saints and Sinners, Moss, Book 1 and 2 are terrific, Tetris Effect. They just released Humanity, which is another big indie game that's coming to VR. But I think, even like last year, I thought you were getting even more of a hint of things to come with Assassin's Creed Nexus and also Asgard's Wrath 2 from our other sister studio, Sanzaru, that delivered a 100-hour RPG, 10 out of 10 on IGN. Just an incredible game. We're not 100 hours in Batman Arkham Shadow, right? But we are, just like Sanzaru, this is not our first rodeo. We've been developing VR games for a long time. And we're just really developing on our craft and making bigger experiences. And that's what consumers are telling us they want. They want bigger, more high quality experiences. And that's what we're trying to do right now as we finish up development in Arkham Shadow.
Absolutely. And hopefully Arkham Shadow is going to be an indicator of the direction that it's going in.
Oh, I don't think it's going to start just regressing, right? It's just so exciting to see where things are headed.
All right, last question from Alfonso on Discord. What frame rate will Arkham Shadow run at? Will it be at native resolution?
So Batman Arkham Shadow will be at native resolution. We did look into reprojection. It's a really fascinating technology. A lot of games are shipping with it. It's really cool, but it can have issues when you're going and moving very, very fast. And especially with our combat, where we wanted everything to connect just at the most pure level, we decided to go with native resolution, much to the chagrin of some of our artists and performance engineers on our team, because you're signing yourselves up for more work, right? Yep. But I think it pays off, and I think you're going to see that all in action with our next big beat, right? Which is coming up not too far from now, right? August 20th.
That's right.
Opening night live at Gamescom with Jeff Keighley, which we're going to be showing for the first time ever in motion Batman Arkham Shadow gameplay as part of our big gameplay trailer. And what you're going to see there is not only really fast and fluid looking Arkham combat translated for VR, but a game that I think, at least we believe, looks absolutely beautiful and really does demonstrate the power of the Quest 3.
I can't wait for opening night live. It's going to be really exciting.
You're going to be there too, by the way.
I am going to be there. That's right. As are you.
I will be too.
But there you go. There you have it. That's going to finish up the questions here from us. Thanks so much for joining us. Ryan Payton, you have any last words?
Oh, I just want to send a big thanks to the Arkham community, the Batman Arkham Videos channel, and also to our friends here at Meta for again letting us borrow their beautiful studio for the Batman mood lighting. It's been just an absolute pleasure, and it's one of the big reasons why we want to do this again. And who knows, maybe we'll be back again for another round.